is talking about the day when Jesus Christ returns. And this is one of those things that we can so quickly lose sight of in our faith as followers of Christ, in our understanding of what Christianity is and what it's about and what it means for us today. The Bible teaches clearly, undeniably, that a day will come when Jesus Christ will return from his place in heaven, and he will be visibly seen by the whole world, and he will come with his believers, and he will establish his kingdom on the earth, and he will rule and he will reign. That's going to be quite a day. And we forget about that. We forget that our faith teaches that day is coming. And you know, we may think, well, all of the believers, the Apostle Paul, they all thought that it was right around the corner, and they had the anticipation that Jesus was coming, and even the way that Jesus spoke, he was putting that in them to anticipate his return at any time, that no one knows. And he didn't come then. And it's been 2,000 years since the Lord has come. So are you trying to tell me that I need to expect that the Lord is going to come before 2020? And one thing I can tell you for sure, I'm not going to give you a date and a time when I expect that he's going to return. No. We know from the scriptures that's a no-no. But the Bible teaches Jesus Christ is going to split open the sky, and he is going to return and forever end history as we know it now and set up his kingdom and rule and reign. And those of us who are followers get to live with him and rule with him forever. That's pretty awesome. Pretty amazing. You say, but they've been waiting for that. You know, I've got to live my life, and yes, we do. I've got to run my company. I got to stay employed. I just need to make sure I don't get fired right now in my job. Some of you could be your situation. So how does that connect with where I'm at right now? Well, even if we are not alive at the last time, what I like to say is, no matter what that may be, we are in our last times. Our life is short on the earth. We may not live to see the day when the Lord returns, although it could happen at any time. But the truth is, this is my last days. It's your last days. And so we want to live with eternity in mind. We want to live in light of eternity. We want to have in our mind that the Lord is coming back for us and that he is going to get us and we are going to be with him forever. And what happens then, it is relevant for the now, because what happens is when we start living in the now with the end in our minds, it changes our priorities. And it gives us focus for our lives. It helps us. Some of you are wanting focus. You're scattered. You're stressed. Who's stressed? Who had a stressful week? I bet a bunch of you had a stressful week. If you didn't, don't raise your hand. That's not fair. But if we get scattered in life, and we have kids, and we have relatives, and we have hurts, and we have wounds, and we have problems, and we have our health, and money, and all of these things. We have a lawn to mow in the summer. And your free time, those of you that have more than an acre, your free time is gone on the weekend mowing your lawn. You have to mow your lawn. Can't let it grow 3 feet. Neighbors won't like you at all. But in the midst of that, you live with eternity in mind. You live with the end in mind. You know that a day is coming when Christ is going to return and set up his kingdom. And even if it's not in your lifetime, you're going to meet him when you die. And with the end in mind, our priorities change. No longer do I only value the here and now. No longer do I only value the things that are precious to me in this world. And that's, we all value. I value the most precious gift I've ever been given in this earth is my wife, Emily, right here. And then my children. And then my family. And then the joys and the pleasures that God has given us in this world. We value those things. But when we live with the end in mind, we start to value other things above. Eternity. We value our walk with the Lord in a new way. We value the need for us to be in mission with God in the world and be a part of his family that is inviting others to step out of that wrath and into his mercy through faith in Jesus Christ. You see how that works? When you have that in mind, that's how that goes. When we keep it in mind who we are in Christ and we get the big picture. We realize we're just travelers passing through. We are people who are on a journey, And there is a time set for that journey, and it's going to end. And we're just travelers. We are foreigners in a foreign land, passing through. That's who followers of Christ are. Do you see yourself that way? Let me ask you about your priorities. What is most important to you? What is it that really, the engine that really drives your life? What really gets you going? I would hope your family is one of those engines. I would hope your marriage. I would hope your employment, is a drive that you have to do your very best and to succeed in those things. But above all of those things, when our priorities are right, what drives our life is our faith in Jesus Christ. Does that mean that we come into the church building every day and that we come to 12 worship services every week? Well, during times of renewal in our communities and things, sure, for a time. But we live our lives as normal people on this world, but we live in a supernatural realm that the rest of the world outside of Christ does not know. And we walk with the Lord. And He's with us by His Spirit as born-again believers, and we live with the end in mind. So let's look here, one last look at what the reality really is, because this is where kind of the rubber meets the road. Verse 6 in 1 Peter. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Are any of you suffering grief? Have you been through a trial recently that has tested you, has cost you, and has beat you down? It happens sometimes. Peter was writing to believers that he felt were not fully aware of the persecution that was about to come upon them. And Peter it had begun, and they had lost some of their family of the faith because of their faith. They were being persecuted, and some of them were being taken away, and they'd even lost some. And Peter knew that all the signs were there for a much greater persecution to be unleashed on this body of believers. And so he was wanting to prepare them for the trials, to encourage them in the midst of the trials they had, and to prepare them for those that came. And many of you know that know your world history, you know what happened shortly after these times with the fall of Jerusalem and the great persecution under Nero and just the massacre of believers that took place when most of the apostles were also executed. And Peter wanted to prepare the believers here for troubles. And he wanted to point out something that's happening in the midst of the trials of life. Because this is where the rubber meets the road. He says in verse 7, look at this with me. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise and glory and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. There is something going on in the trials of our lives, and we can't always fully understand it, and sometimes it's confusing and it causes us to think, God, why would you do this to me? And I think the right question that we can bring to the Lord sometimes is, Lord, I don't know why you have allowed this to happen in my life, but would you help me to keep a hold of you and to turn to you and to walk with you in the midst of it? And Peter says, what can be a hard thing to accept, that there is a testing and a proving of our faith when we are in difficulty. And it's like what people who work with metals and gold and fine metals and precious metals do. They put them and they heat them up to a certain temperature. What they'll do with gold is they get it into a liquid state, and all of the impurities will rise to the surface because of the intense heat. And then they can scoop off the things that don't belong in that pure gold. And it's the same way with our difficulties. We feel the heat, and usually what may have been hidden or covered over tends to come out. And the things we say or the way we feel or the seasons that we enter into and the way that we respond. And Peter is saying that God is looking in the midst of our challenges to prove our faith.